Hi, this is Greg with Walnut Ridge RV. Today we're going to be looking at the 272BH. We're going to be doing an orientation video on it. So we'll start up here in the front with your power jack. You have standard on and off controls for the lights up front. Then you have your simple up and down. That's going to be used to level the unit front to back, and also of course get it on and off your vehicle. It does have a cap up top, so you can pop that off, and it has a manual crank in case something ever did fail in the jack, or you're really low on battery, something's wrong with the truck, you need to get it on and off. You have that option there. Besides that, behind that you have two 4.5 gallon or 20-pound LP tanks. Both these are full at the time of pickup from Walnut Ridge. Fairly easy operation. So we're going into camping season this time of year. So when you pick these up, you have two options of the way to use it. So you can either have both tanks on, and then up front you have your regulator. What this will do is it'll allow you to choose which tank that it pulls from. So let's say I have both tanks on. I'm going to point the lever at this tank. It's going to draw off that tank first. Once that tank's completely empty, it's got a little gauge in the front, it's hard to see, but it'll automatically start pulling from this next tank. That way, if you are got your furnace going or something that you don't want to shut off, it would automatically pull from the next tank. That way it doesn't shut off on you, and you lose whatever power you are using. Now you can use it another way. You can either leave one tank off, and let's say I've got it pointing at that tank. Once that tank's empty, that gauge in the front will go red again, but it'll stop. Whatever's running off the LP will stop. You know, okay, this tank's empty, I still got this one left. I'll flip it to the next one, and now I turn this one on, and I'm ready to start using it again. And I know I have a full tank left. When you do it the other way and you've got both tanks on, if it did start cutting into this tank, you don't really know how much is in there. And if you are using it in that mode where you leave both tanks on, once you know that this tank's empty and you know it's pulling from this tank, you'll want to go ahead and flip the lever over, because you lose some of your BTUs that way, so things might not run as efficiently as they would when it's pointed at its direction. One other thing that I point out that I see a lot of people do, and it's an easy mistake to make: never leave the lever in the middle. This is not going to allow this regulator to pull from both tanks. That's all it's going to do, is put it in a position in here that it shouldn't be in, and it's going to cause a leak over time. So always have it either one way or the other. Pretty much it with the LP system. You have your battery back here. Normally it's going to be a 12-volt deep cycle marine battery. It's not a maintenance-free battery, so you'll want to check the water levels on those every 6 months or so. Pop the caps off that are on the top of the batteries, look down in there, make sure that the water level is up to the bottom. It's pretty easy to tell where it's supposed to be at, and if it's not, you fill that with distilled water. So the battery's going to run your lights, your water pump, your 12-volt systems, all that. And the biggest thing about the battery is the biggest misconception, and the things that I see wrong the most, is that they're unsure how the charging system works, and when you should have it unplugged and when you shouldn't. So when you're using the system, let's say you're camping, battery's of course plugged in, you have the unit plugged in, and you're in there using it, leave it the way it is. That way it's charging the battery's helping the converter, and everything's running like it should. Now let's say you're going to go home, you're going to park it in the driveway, it's just going to sit there, it's not plugged in, nothing. Best thing to do is, if your unit has a battery disconnect, flip that on. If it doesn't, you go in there and you pull the negative off the battery. That's going to keep the small things that are hardwired to the battery on the inside, like the LP leak detector. There's different little things are hardwired to the battery, backlighting and stuff like that. That'll keep that from draining your battery over a week or two period of time. Now that battery will still go dead if it's just going to sit there for months not being used. So don't always expect the battery to go out there after it's been a month and your battery's going to be fully charged just because you unhooked it. Another way that you want to, if the unit is going to sit somewhere, but it's going to sit unplugged in, but nobody's using it, and it's going to sit like that for months at a time, it's better to go ahead and take the disconnect off the battery, make sure everything's shut off on the inside, because they can overcharge. The converter's supposed to prevent that, but just in case it did fail, something went wrong, you don't want it sitting there boiling the battery. That's only if you're not using it. If you're in there actually using the unit and things are getting turned on and all that, you'll want it hooked up. That way the converter alone isn't doing all the work. So hopefully that clears up a little bit of the fuzziness on that. Moving around this side, you don't have too much. Of course, you got your pass-through storage. This is prepped for Furrion side cameras, which are really nice to have. While we're right here, we'll talk about the slide-out maintenance. This is a standard ram-driven slide, so you have two or three things to do maintenance-wise on them. The rubber seals that go top and bottom and the sides, you'll want to spray those with a rubber seal conditioner every 3 months or so, at least twice a year, but more never hurts. So you spray that on there, let it sit, and it isn't going to hurt the sides or anything, and just let it condition those seals, because these are always in the sun when they're being used, and this is rubber. Over time it's going to dry up and crack, and even the best rubber seal conditioner isn't going to keep it from drying and cracking over years of use. So eventually they're going to deteriorate if you keep your camper for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But doing that is going to help prolong that process. Other than that, you'll want to keep the roof washed. Same thing with the actual roof up top, but the slide out roof itself is the same rubber. So you want to get a RV roof cleaning conditioner, put that in a bucket and scrub the roof down. Once a year is probably okay. Twice a year if you're feeling ambitious, and that'll just help clean that roof, gets all the junk off there, but it also conditions the rubber. Like, once again, conditioning rubber from being in the sun, UV rays. Other than that, underneath you have your rails that need to be conditioned. First thing you have the ram right here, the round bar. That's not what you're really messing with. You're messing with the bar behind it. There's one here and one on the other side with the teeth on the bottom. You want to spray those with a dry lube of some sort, preferably RV slide lube, so that way when it runs back in, it lubricates the motors and everything. You could spray this bar if you wanted to. It's really not going to hurt anything, but you want to do that again every 6 months, at least twice a year, or every 3 months or so. So we'll move around to the other side here and check out the dump station. All right, now we're on the back side of the unit. Got another big storage. Not much in there you have to mess with. Just nice big open storage for your nut chill. And then down here you have your dump station. So you have check, make sure. Yeah, this one's just got the one in the rear. So you have a gray handle and a black handle, and your dump site, or your dump hookup. This is where you're going to hook your sewer hose into. You're going to take this cap off, hook your sewer hose onto there, and then put that into either your pull wagon or the dump site at the campground. From there, you'll always want to pull the black handle first, or the bigger of the two. So this is the biggest valve, so you want to pull that. That's always your black tank, which is your toilet. Pull that, wait till it's completely done. It's nice to have one of the clear elbows, that way you can see when the waste is done being drained. Close it, and then pull the gray. That's going to prevent the gray water, the black water, from backwashing up into the gray tanks, and it's going to help clean out your hose with a little bit cleaner water, because the gray water is your bathroom sink, kitchen sink, and shower usually. So that'll help clean out that water. That's usually the best way to go. In terms of dumping it. Now, one thing that's common, I don't want to say it's common, but you can't have the issues, is that sometimes something gets stuck in these seals. So we have complaints a lot of times is that they go to take the cap off at the dump site, which I'm not going to do because there may be water behind there, or antifreeze. They take this off, and then all this water comes out because they either forgot to close these dumps before they started using it, or something did go wrong and something got stuck in the seal and it didn't completely close. And this cap's watertight, so all that anything that's supposed to be in the tank will be right behind this cap. So always, before you start camping, make sure that both your tank valves are shut. And I like to just go ahead and take the cap off, and that way, once I start using it, I could see if it was leaking. I'd know if I had an issue or not, and I'm not going to know that getting a surprise when I'm at my dump site. So other than that, you have the electric jacks back here, which I'll show on the other side how those work, and we'll move around on over there. So on the back side, of course, we've got the rear bathroom door, which is nice, but you have your electric stabilizing jacks. It's just simple extend and retract, and I don't want to do it because we're in the showroom, and they have these set to a certain level that they want. Now these jacks aren't used to level the camper. You still want to level the old school way of using that very front stabilizing jack, or the tongue jack, to get your front to back level. And then side to side leveling, if it's really off, you'll still have to drive up on blocks or links levelers or something like that. And once you get level, by checking it with a foot level, just a little one, keeping your front storage toolbox, check the floor, check the back bumper, the countertops, until you get as level as possible. And then you extend these down until they snug up with the ground, and that's it. You don't want to put weight on these because they're not made for it. They can bend, and you cause all kind of headache for yourself and money out of your pocket, because you don't want to have to pay for those. Let's see, we'll move down this way. Got a outlet here. You wanna, it's made for TV output, so if you want to hook up your TV out here with a cable, you could, but if not, you just have a couple outlets there you can use. You have your stove vent. These pop out whenever you're actually using it. You can pop these tabs out and let the vent open. You just want to make sure that you pop them in there closed before you travel, if that flap will flap around and probably fall off. You have your furnace exhaust. Not too much you need to do here. Maintenance wise, you want to blow them out, keep them, or bring them into us, blow them out every you know, at least once a year. But the biggest thing would be to keep mud dauber screens attached to these at all times. Mud daubers, bees, ladybugs, stink bugs, whichever bug of the year it is, and especially mud daubers build nests back in there, and they build them rock hard mud nests, and they can break parts in there, the squirrel cage mainly, and then you gotta take the whole furnace out. So it's just a little insurance policy to keep those cheap screens on there. You have your fresh tank fill. We must have blew right by the city water connection on the other side, but if you're at a park that doesn't have a city water connection, which is at the back of the unit on this one, I believe, you can fill this tank up, either if you have the truck to haul the weight, fill it up before you leave the house, or right when you get to a state park, fill it up, turn on the pump from the inside, and you have a limited supply of water. Usually 45 to 55 gallons, depending on the model. You'll have to, this one's 43 actually, it says right there. The city water connection that's on the back, which is most parks you're going to go to, you're just going to hook the hose directly into the line, hook it up, or turn it on and go. You have an unlimited water supply. And here we have a gas only suburban water heater, 6 gallon. So fairly easy to operate. You have an anode rod, your drain plug, anode rod all in one. You'll want to, it probably needs replaced once a year depending on how you use it. They're fairly cheap, but it screws down in there. It's 1 1/16 inch socket. Now you have to play with it. You get that call sometimes. You have to play with it because the weight on the end makes it not want to thread in. So just kind of lift it up, play with it until you get it screwed in there. Snug it up, and always make sure you have thread tape on it. Snug it up good with your wrench. And then from there, once you hook up to your water source, either your fresh tank or your city water connection, the tank will start to fill as long as it's unbypassed. And that's something it's going to depend on the time of the year that you bought the unit from us, or if it's winterized or not. You have to unbypass your water heater, which is always behind the water heater, usually under the sink or under a hidden false wall. From there, once it starts filling, you'll come out here, lift this valve open. It's the pressure relief valve. And if it stays open, that's great, but if it doesn't, just hold it until water starts to shoot out here. It's going to shoot out and get everything in here wet, which is okay. And once it does that, you know the water heater's full. It's got all the air out of it. And from there, you can turn it on, which is on the inside. I'll show you. And then it'll light as long as your LP's on. And it'll shut off when it needs to and relight again. It's kind of a once you turn it on, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It takes about 25 minutes to get hot, maybe a little less for the gas side. And you just go camping, kind of forget about it, and it'll come on and get hot when it needs to and shut off when it doesn't. Let's see, they got the dog leash there, dog leash holder / bottle opener. Of course, you have your front stabilizing jack, and then your other storage, electric awning, of course, with awning lights. Outside speakers on the 272. Moving inside, you have your main control panel up here. So this is going to tell you the levels in your tanks underneath. So you have your battery, which it'll tell you your battery level roughly when you're not plugged in. Kind of gives you a rough idea. The fresh tank is your drinking water tank. That's out there on the bottom. You have your black, which is your black 1, which is your toilet. Black 2 is not used on this model. They just use this same panel for all the hideouts. So some of them do, some of them don't. Then you have gray 1, which is your bathroom sink, kitchen sink, shower. And gray 2 is not used again, so these last 2 aren't used. You have your water pump if you are using the fresh tank out there. But if you're hooked in directly to city water, you just turn on your faucet and go. You don't have to mess with the pump. Water heater for gas, flip that on. Once that light goes off, you know that it lit. If it stays on after a minute or 2, then it probably didn't light. Usually you just got to flip it off, try it again to get the gas flowing back in this area. So when you turn it on, it's going to come on. So don't think that it automatically didn't light. It's kind of an odd design. You would think that it would be off until it failed, but it's not. It goes off once it lights. Different lighting throughout the unit. Countertop, the lights above the kitchen here, you have your slide room in and out. Again, I can't run out, but it just runs all the way in, so you hear it click like that, and you know it's all the way out or all the way in. Awning, extend and retract, same thing. Simple extend and retract. You don't have to go all the way out with it if you can't. If you got a tree or something in the way or another camper like I do, you just need to stop it halfway out. Just to take a little shade or sun off the door, that's fine. Run it all the way in until it comes in and snugs up, and you're good to go. Let's see, over here we have something I got a call about the other day. They asked about this plug here, and all this is if the rooftop has a prep for them on a lot of the Keystone units now, that if you got the satellite prep, you could plug in up there, and this would be the coax out. If I pop this out, it's just got a coax on the end of it. I'd plug into the back of my satellite receiver. Other than that, you have your booster for 2 things. You have, let's see, this one's the antenna. So if you are using the cable or the antenna on the roof, if you did put a TV in here, you'd want that on when you're using the antenna. Pretty much powers the antenna. And then it also has the Wi-Fi range, which is in here somewhere on the ceiling. Oh, it's right here above me. So if you hooked into the new WineGuard router system that they have, if you bought into that, or bought that, not bought into that, you unscrew this, pull it down, and you'll have either two to 4 wires. It depends. You'll pull it down. You either have one thick wire that's got 2 wires on it. That's your hot and your ground to hook up into the WineGuard system. You'll have to strip the ends and connect it to the router that came in the box. You'll also have 3 or 4 gold wires with little gold tips on them. Those screw into the back of the router, and then you screw, or the router mounts up here. And if you wanted to use the Wi-Fi from that gives you on and off to use. So, other than that, you got RCA jacks here for the TV and everything once it's hooked in. If not, you got a couple outlets. Radio is pretty self-explanatory. It's got an aux, Bluetooth, HDMI, all that good stuff you'd expect nowadays. You gotta hold it, shut it off, but it does have Zone 1 and Zone 2, which are the speakers inside and out, so you can mess with those, see if you want one on or one off. Fireplace down below. It's got a remote here. It's pretty simple. It's probably got different buttons. You can turn the heat on, turn it off. You can have it just to look cool without no heat. Change the lighting of the rocks and change the lighting of the flames. Pretty nice little fireplaces, and they put out a decent amount of heat. So if it's get one of those chilly mornings where you don't want to kick your furnace on, you have an option to heat up this main living area. Let's see, below you have a central vac system, which is pretty nice for this. Now I'll show you. When I turn this on, you hear the beep of the microwave, which we've got calls on this a lot. The central vac is wired into a box that wires up with the microwave, so you cannot run the microwave and the central vac at the same time for fear of blowing blowing your breakers or whatnot. So when you turn that on, it's going to kill your microwave. Don't freak out. That's what it's designed to do. You have a bag somewhere inside the unit, usually underneath the bed or underneath the couch, that's got your attachments. You just stick your hose in there, turn it on, sweep it up, and then from there, to empty the bag, you slide this over the hole. You got this hole here, pull it out, you've got your bag. got a little rubber collar on it, and then you've got a phone number or a website you can call and order more bags. Just tell them number Y10 or whichever number yours has on it, and they just slip back over the collar. Just kind of tuck your bag back in there. Maybe. And you're ready to go. Pretty nice to have, that way you don't have to carry a little sweeper with you. Got your microwave, standard 110 microwave, just like at home, easy to use. Light and fan, stove fan over your stove there. You have, of course, your stove, which is easy to light. And we don't have LP set up in the showroom, but the way you light this is you're going to turn it to light. You see it come on red, which is nice. You're going to turn your clicker a few times, and we got a little bit out of there, until it lights. Sometimes it takes quite a few clicks to get it to light because it's the gas has been off for a while or whatnot, and it just needs to reach up to all the way to this point. Let's see, that's pretty much it. You can shut the lights off, and if you want, but still it will always show the red light if it is on, so that way if a kid got a hold of it and touched it, you're going to notice that, and it's not spewing gas out into the unit. I think that's probably one of the best features they've put in the units in a long time as far as safety goes. The oven light's the same way. You're going to turn it to the little flame. You're going to push and hold it in for a few seconds, and then you're going to give it a few clicks until you see a flame in the back, at the back. After you see that flame, keep it held in for a few seconds, let it off, and then you can turn it to whatever temperature you want, and that whole bar will light up in a flame. And then from there you cook. It's best to use a pizza stone on these. I've read that helps, ceramic stone or whatnot, that helps keep the heat dispersed evenly. Oh, what do we got here? We got a new Norcold fridge. Really big in here. We got, let's see, you got your on and off button. You got your temp controls 1 through 5, I believe, on this one. Yeah, 5. You have different modes as far as high and low, basically, and then you have like a sleep mode, which will, when it's not going to be open as much, you can turn that on, and that's going to help. It's going to help conserve energy at night when it's not going to be opened all the time. So. Let's see here. Hold it here for a few seconds to shut it off. Let's see. Down below you have your converter, all your fuses and breakers. Fuses are 12-volt sides, so lights, pump, awning, different things like that. Always just check on those. If there is something goes wrong, it does have a light in the board, so if something blows and something is trying, let's say the awning fuse blown, and whenever I try to use the awning, that light will light up next to it, but it will not light up if I'm not trying to use the awning. So a lot of people call and say, well, it's not showing a red light. That's because you're not pulling power from it. It's not trying to get power. So anytime something's not working, that's the first place you want to go. Same over here. This is your 110 sides, your AC, microwave, GFI, all those. Let's see, you got your pneumatic thermostat back here, which will do your AC and your furnace. Pretty simple. They got 3 buttons on them. You got mode, which if you hit once, you go into auto mode or fan mode, and you can turn it from high, low to auto. And when you're running when you're running the furnace, you want to make sure that you left it on auto, because if not, and it was in high or low, my furnace will kick on, but my fan would also kick on the ceiling. So anytime you're using the furnace, make sure it's in auto. If you're using fan or AC, I prefer to leave it in high if it's on AC, because sometimes if it's real hot, it doesn't cycle fast enough, and it could end up freezing up the unit. So it's best to leave it in either auto or high when you're using AC, but you can run it in low for just the fan, just to kind of circulate some air throughout the unit. Let's see, other than that, LP gas leak detector down there at the bottom. Like I said, that's always hardwired into the battery, so those are always on, as long as the battery's hooked up. GFI reset breaker in the bathroom, so if any outlets in the kitchen or outside ever trip, this is where it'll trip. You'll see that the light's off now, and none of those outlets are working until I reset it, just like at home. And then you have your toilet in here. Simple push down. Once it has water in it, it'll actually fill right now. And then once it's full and I'm done, I can hold it all the way down to flush it. Let's see, you got a vent fan in there. It's got a switch in there in the corner. You can open that up, exhaust some of the air out of here. And then, see, the last step would be the bedroom. I don't think there's nothing too spectacular in here. You can hook up another TV in here. It's got a mounting bracket, or a piece of wood basically back there behind the wall that you can mount another TV to and hook into this coax and 110 up there. Got little straps on the door to give you a little privacy. It's got under bed storage. Outlets on both sides for your phones, and a little book rack up there for what you have you. And that's pretty much it for the Hideout 272BH. We'll see you next week with another video.